Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be reviewing our nutrition recommendations. And again, we have some customized recommendations. So we have some general stuff and then we customize it at the follow-up consult. So again, this is my new patient quick start guide. So if you just had a new patient consult with me, you're going to typically get something like this right after the consult. The first video here is going to be the new patient video. This is going to have just like logistical things, how to pay your invoice, how to schedule or reschedule your consult, just some of the simple FAQ things, some of the terms of service policies for the clinic. Then the next step is what we're actually going to do. So out of the gate, this template is very helpful because you're going to look at that because if you have any issues with paying or scheduling, that's important. And then the nutrition video, this is what I'm re-updating now. So we'll go over and make a new video based on this video today. And then some of the basic handouts, and these may change over time, but I have my foundational eating plan. Menu suggestion gives more specific recommendations. And then we have FODMAPs. If we have a lot of chronic IBS or IBD or chronic gut issues, we're going to be typically looking at some of the FODMAP things. And so that'll be important to go over next. And then download your protocol sheet. Again, your protocol sheet will look like this. Right? And it's going to have the new patient video link, the same thing as number 1, the same thing as number 2. And then it'll have all the recommendations regarding supplements here, and the lab recommendations will be down here. You'll be able to click it on hold. If it says on hold, that means it's not meant for you. It's possible it could be left there by accident. You can always email. But if it's on your invoice, you know that that's the test that we're recommending. But on hold means it's not for you. If you see it like this, that means it's for you. Just an FYI. And then you can hover your mouse over it, says press control, and then click, and that opens the link. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. Control, and then same thing over here regarding the lab rec forms, right? Those are all at the bottom. All right, hope that helps out of the gate. So let me kind of dive back in. So first off, you can open up my eating plan. So you can come here like that, click it. I already have it open over here. All right, so first things out of the gate. So here, actually it's not open. Let me go grab it. All right. Okay. So first things out of the gate. This is my eating plan. I've kind of adopted this over the last 10, 15 years or so and just kind of made it better every year or so with patient experience and seeing over 5,000 plus patients over 15 years. I have a lot of data points that seem to be very helpful and work. And really the goal of this is not to get super specific. It's really just to work on a good foundation. So eating every 4 to 5 hours is really important for stabilizing blood sugar, right? We don't want to get hangry. A little bit hungry is fine. We don't want to be starving, right? Blood sugar swings up and down can put stress on the hormones. We want to be eating real food. Yes, it's possible to eat a lot of calories and not have a lot of nutrients. So we want real whole foods. Again, most people I see have insulin resistance and blood sugar issues, so doing more veggies than fruit is better because you're getting good nutrients but less fructose or sugar. But again, if we're doing things like berries, green apple, that's okay. So just look at how much weight you have extra on you. If you have a lot of extra weight, focus more on veggies. Be more in that ketogenic, paleo-ketogenic template, if you will. Yeah, when someone says paleo, all that means is just we're eating foods, old foods, right? We're eating foods that are not Neolithic, not processed sugar, not junky, refined vegetable oils and inflammatory fats. All it means is we're eating old foods that we have evolved to eat over many years. And then the next component is we want nutrient density. We want to focus on nutrient density. And I kind of go into that here. Down here a little bit here. So we want foods that are anti-inflammatory. We want nutrient dense and also low in toxin. Low in toxin just means by eating organic. And ideally avoiding a lot of anti-nutrients like gluten and some of the beans and such. So, that's really important. Each meal should have protein, fat, and carbs in it, right? Ideally at least 30 grams of protein in the first 30 minutes. How much protein? Is about 6 to 8 grams of protein per 1 ounce of cooked meat. And so if you're doing about a palm to a fist, that's going to be between about 3 to 6 ounces, depending on how big you are. And that could be anywhere between, 20 to 40 grams of protein. And then up to a full hand, which would probably be closer to maybe 6 to 10, depending on your size. So right in that 3 to 8 range is pretty good. So somewhere between 20 to 25 if you're smaller, and somewhere between 40 to 60, depending on how big you are. Like if you're lifting and if you're an athlete, all those things, are going to shift. And then carbohydrate amount, 2 full fists to 2 full hands. And I typically tell patients most of your plate should be veggies. Again, the more active you are and the more you're at a good weight, you can obviously shift that and go more non-starchy, or I should say go more starchy carbohydrate, safe starchy. Safe starchy means grain-free. Think root vegetables, right? Think tubers, those kind of things. And then ideally you have your fruit and then you have your non-starchy veg. But ideally we want to focus on 3/4 of your, if we were just looking at Imagine we have a plate that's just carbohydrate. Imagine 3/4 of that plate being at least veggies. And again, maybe even more. If we're really fully going keto, we may want to just do all veggies, right? Or for carnivore, it's going to be no plate of carbohydrates at all, right? And again, carnivore really is an autoimmune low FODMAP diet. So when we talk about autoimmune low FODMAP, it's important out of the gate. Oh, and just so you guys can see here too, my recommendations for the diet are here. So autoimmune and low FODMAP. Not everyone gets the same recommendations. Some people, we just do a paleo template. Some we just do low FODMAP. Some people, we have to do more strict diets with oxalates and salicylates and histamine. So this is just a general template. So what diet? That's the diet right there. It'll have both of them right there. If it's both together, we're going to layer them together. That's really, really important. Okay, good questions out of the gates. All right. So dial in your carbs. Lower carbs, right? That's going to be about 50 grams net. Net is carbs minus fiber. So if you have a lot of insulin resistance or any weight issues or damaged metabolism, we want the carbs to be lower. If you're doing pretty decent, you can go a little bit higher in carbs. And again, even 50 grams, you can still do veggies at each meal for your carbs. Maybe 1 to 2 servings of berries is typically okay. If someone's overweight or has high insulin, I'm going to say no fruit at all for the first couple of weeks. And again, we test our blood sugar to see, we can do a functional glucose tolerance. Check out my YouTube channel for videos on that content. But essentially, you get a blood sugar meter like the Keto Mojo. justinhealth.com/Keto Mojo, KETOMOJO. And you can test your blood sugar before you eat. We want it under 100. We want it under 120 within hour 1, and I definitely below 100 in hour 2. Or hour 3 can be 100 as well. So we want to be back below 100 within 2 to 3 hours. That's a pretty good way of assessing it. And if you're athletic, you're younger, or you're at a pretty good weight and you're active, you can go more carbs. So listen to your body, especially if you feel good with it. A good sign that you're doing too much carbs is you're putting on weight and you're getting tired after a meal if you're doing too much. Again, the goal is to reduce inflammation. We talked about that. Nutrient dense, anti-inflammatory, low toxins, really important out of the gate. And again, we want to minimize stimulants. If you do a little bit of caffeine, right? If it's coffee or a good clean tea, mix some fat in there like MCT oil. If you can do butter or ghee, great. If you can't because you're autoimmune, just do MCT. Do some collagen, 20 grams of collagen. It time releases the caffeine. Many people I see who are sensitive to caffeine can totally do it when you mix in a fat and a protein. It basically makes it a meal replacement, and it's no longer just a drink. But again, if you can't do it, you can always do caffeine-free. Decaf, that's going to be 95% caffeine free. Your typical cup of coffee has 100 milligrams of caffeine. Decaf is only 5. So if you're still sensitive on that, you can do something like a Ticino, or a cleaner decaf tea is fine. Chamomile is great too. Ginger, we talk about that a lot. High quality sea salt is excellent. So about a half a teaspoon twice a day. I like Redmond's is excellent. Himalayan, Celtic is also brands like Baja Gold. Again, we typically will mix this with my potassium synergy supplement. The sea salt is primarily sodium chloride and some micronutrients, but it's not going to have a significant amount of potassium or magnesium. So we'll usually go potassium synergy, 1 serving of that with about a half a teaspoon of the Redmond's real salt twice a day. That's a pretty good electrolyte stack. When you have adrenal issues, you tend to pee out a lot of your electrolytes, not hold them on well. And most people don't get enough of their nutrients anyway. You can go to right here, click this to access the nutrient counter over at Chronometer. But if you click that, that'll open up this page here, and you can get an account with Chronometer, put your height, your weight, your activity in here, and your weight goes, and it'll at least give you a good idea of your macros. You can set your macros if you want to be more keto. You can set those macros to be somewhere around 65 to 70% fat, 10% carbs, 20-25% protein. That's pretty good, if you want to be very low carb, or you can adjust it accordingly. But what's special about this, it will come up with micronutrients. And so you'll be able to look at protein, you'll be able to look at fat, you'll be able to look at carbohydrate, at all of that. And so that'll give you a really good window of where you're at with your potassium, with your magnesium. So you'll see the micronutrients. You'll see the magnesium, the potassium, and the extra electrolytes, and you'll get a window into that. And then water filters are great. So I have a list here. If you go into this link here, you'll get access. Aquasan is great. They have a really good countertop filter, a whole house filter. I recommend an RO for drinking because it just filters out everything. And then a whole house is still good for like showering and just, general drinking, 10-20% of the time. You still want to have your main filter for your water be an RO, and then a whole house is great just to keep your home water just really clean is good. Plus it's better on your pipes too. What to eat, healthy fats. So we want to focus on most of your fats being saturated, right? Saturated fats, the chemistry on saturated fats, you have a carbon, a single bond, a carbon, a single bond, a carbon, and it could be, 6 carbons. That could be like an MCT oil, or it could be 12 carbons. That's like a lauric acid, right? So the more carbons you have with single bonds, that makes it saturated. If you add in a double bond, that makes it mono unsaturated, right? One double bond. And then polyunsaturated, like your omega-3s or omega-6s, that makes it more double bonds, which makes it more unstable. So heat tends to make these fats go more rancid and oxidize. Plus, these fats like canola oil and soybean oil, they're highly processed. You really want to stay away from it. And if you want a nice little video to educate yourself on some of these things, feel free to head over to YouTube and just type in how canola oil is made. How canola oil is made. Okay, and this is a great video. You could take a look and watch this. But right here, this is what you want to watch. It is nasty. It's about like 50 different processes. Again, you can watch that at a later time. But again, it just the fat is going to be rancid. It's going to be oxidized. It's going to be devoid of lots of nutrients. Plus, there's all kinds of deodorizers and solvents and bleaching agents. So not good. So we want to have good, healthy, saturated fats. If we do fats that are going to be more mono, think cold pressed single source olive oil, cold pressed single source avocado. These are better for dressings or very, very, very low heat, but ideally dressings. And again, healthy carbs. We talked about the carbs here. Try to do more organic, non-starchy veggies. Try to do more veggies than fruit and starch. And again, proteins, grass-fed, organic, wild-caught, always better. And then your paleo template's basically no grains, legumes, no dairy, right? Healthy fats, healthy proteins, dial in your carbs. We keep the grains out, right? Wheat, barley, rye, spelt, these are our gluten-containing grains. Our legumes, beans, lentils, peanuts, soy. These are going to have a lot of anti-nutrients, lectins, phytic acid compounds, a lot of what we call anti-nutrients. And then, of course, dairy. The best dairy tends to be things like ghee is clarified butter, so it's missing the lactose and the casein. Then you have butter, which has a small amount of lactose and casein. And then the milk and the yogurt and cheese have more lactose and more casein. Again, if it's raw cheese or raw milk, there's enzymes. But out of the gate, we want to just focus on ghee or butter if we're on a paleo template. Now with autoimmune, now we're cutting out all grains, legumes, dairy, which is the same thing. But now we're also cutting out ghee, butter, and then we're also cutting out autoimmune foods like nuts, seeds, eggs, and nightshade veggies. Nightshades are tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, pepper. So sometimes this can be a big difference, especially people with acne. Nuts and seeds and eggs sometimes can be a problem. So we don't know. So we just try to err on the side of being a little bit more cautious. The goal is to find out what your kryptonite is. Again, be diligent. Be on top of it. Do this for at least 4 weeks. Make sure there are no symptomatic improvements for 1 week. So week 3 to 4, make sure you're feeling pretty stable. No additional symptomatic big wins. And then you can start to reintroduce foods. You can click here, and you can start to reintroduce foods. This is a pretty good guide on how and what order to do it. Make sure you're plateaued, no additional improvements for at least 1 week. Be very careful when introducing it. Make sure you're not adding a bunch of GI clearing herbs at the same time. This happens all the time. And then when you successfully add a food over 1 to 2 days, don't consume these new foods as you add in other foods. So if you added in eggs and butter and nuts and seeds, people tend to just stack all these foods together. So just give it a little bit of a break as you add new foods in. Just kind of space them apart a little bit so you're not adding a bunch of new stuff all in the same meal. Hope that helps. And okay, so we're on how to eat. That was page 1, right? The combinations and such, and adjusting the macros. And again, just to comment on one thing here with the protein, fat, and carbs. Fat's usually going to be within the protein. It can also be what we cook the protein in. It can also be what we cook our veggies in or steam our veggies in, or we can also put it on top of the carbohydrate. So just be mindful of that. That can be important too. So when combining fats with our meal, if our protein sources are very lean, we'll add additional fats. We can also cook our carbs or steam our veggies with fats, or we can just add some right on top of the protein. You can put a scoop of coconut oil on there, or if you can add in butter, we'll add a scoop of butter on top of it if we need to. So those are all good options to make sure your meal's pretty balanced. Again, fats are very satiating, and they're good for our cell membranes, and so don't avoid fats. Just make sure we're not eating a lot of fats with a lot of carbohydrates. That can be a problem for insulin and for your arteries. Again, it's you've high fructose corn syrup, bad fats. That's usually when that's an issue, right? High insulin with bad fats together is a bad combination. All right, so back here again, talked about the autoimmune, and then again, FODMAPs. We talked about FODMAPs too. There's a link to my FODMAP diet here. I'll click on it. It'll open it up over here. So a lot of times I'm telling patients to go autoimmune and low FODMAP together. So patients are not aware of what that looks like. They overlap, but they're not perfect. Now I put here AI next to foods if you're avoiding if on an autoimmune diet as well. So if you're already following my autoimmune diet over here, okay, then just keep an eye out for this AI because you're going to avoid if on an autoimmune diet as well. So you may see things like, oh, tomato, right? But guess what? It's low FODMAP, right? Green is low, orange is medium, red is high. That means you would avoid it if on an autoimmune. Or if you go to the starch section, you'll see white rice. You're going to avoid on an autoimmune. Or white potato, avoid on autoimmune. So just gives you a little idea of what's autoimmune and low FOD together. If you're just following a low FODMAP and you're just following a low FODMAP kind of paleo approach, then don't worry about the AI. And that's just your reminder for you. So this gives you a pretty good idea looking at veggies, looking at fruits, looking at starches, looking at nuts and seeds, dairy, proteins, fats, treats, seasonings. And again, if you have a smartphone, you can go to your app store. I think it's either on Android or Apple. There's a application called FODMAP A to Z. FODMAP A to Z. I think it plugs into the Monash University, and it just gives you a more comprehensive list. This isn't perfect. It's what I made over the years and kind of amalgamated, but it's just like a 1 or 2 pager for the fridge. But if you want the app that's going to be way more indexed, that's a pretty good way to look at it. Like for instance, avocado, if you do like under 1/8 or 1/4, it's okay, but over that, it could be medium, right? Same with sweet potato. Like sweet potato comes in here, I think at a, let me find it again. It's under a starch, right? Up to a 1/2 cup. So I added that over the years. I added that up to a 1/2 cup. Okay, 1/2 to 1/4. But if you start going above that, now it's medium. Does that make sense? And so this gives you a pretty good idea of what you can do on the medium side to actually make it low. Usually if you cut the amount down, you're okay. But if you cross a certain amount, then it can be an issue. Same with some of the fruit as well. So that gives you a pretty good idea of how to combine and amalgamate the low FODMAP with my eating plan. And then also I have my little meal map at the bottom here on page 3. Again, I have my low FODMAP here, right? Or these, I should say, are the high FODMAP. So the F's are high FODMAP foods. Again, this is not, so these are like cauliflower's high FODMAP, right? You can go back here and you can see cauliflower over here somewhere, right? It's a higher FODMAP food. So this isn't meant to be comprehensive. It's just meant to give you like an idea, just be a 1-pager you can print out, put on your fridge, just give you some simple suggestions. But when you want more ideas in regards to the FODMAPs, like what's low, what's high, what's medium, you're going to use this page right here. And then you can also pull out that FODMAP A to Z app if you want more in-depth feedback on that. All right. And again, we want to be diligent. I showed you the food reintroduction handout too. That gives you some pretty good information there. Artificial sweeteners, use them few and far between. There are natural ones like stevia, monk fruits, sugar alcohols that are maybe a little bit more healthier. Sugar alcohols like xylitol, erythritol, they are polyols, they are FODMAPs. Right? Remember, FODMAPs are fermentable, oligo, disaccharide, mono, and polyols. And so like I had here, right, FODMAPs and food reintroduction. So again, my FODMAP handout here, but we go lower FODMAP if we have chronic constipation, bloating, or gas. We're going to go lower FODMAP. And one of the things I like is an Instapot because it can pre-digest and cook that food up really nice. So I love an Instapot. If you click here, guess what? I'll give you a nice little Amazon link. And that's a good one for you to be able to get, to be able to pick up. It's a great one. Basically, just make sure you vent it up on the top here. Let's see here, this little vent. Yeah, so the newer ones have the sliding one. You used to have to turn it. This one, you can flip it, and then it vents out, and then you're good to go. But you can, let's say, put like a little bit of protein in there, a little bit of water to make it more of a soup, or even just a light steam, or a little bit more to make it more like a stew or a soup. 30 to 45 minutes on high. It's wonderful. Why I like Instapots are because a slow cooker takes 8 to 10 hours, and it can accumulate histamine. I see a lot of patients that have a lot of histamine sensitivity. And so with an Instapot, it's cooking it in 30 to 45 minutes so you don't have the histamine, and you can literally put your fork through your meat and it just falls off. So it just really pre-digests it. Think of cooking as pre-digestion. It's going to make the food easier to digest in your tummy. And so if you're having a lot of gastritis or a lot of malabsorption, using an Instapot can be amazing. And again, be diligent on that front. Going back to artificial sweeteners, things like Splenda and aspartame. Splenda is a sugar molecule with 3 chlorines, not good for the gut bacteria. Aspartame is an aspartic acid combined with a methyl alcohol. And at 101, 102 degrees, it can turn into formaldehyde, right? So not the best for the gut microbiome, not the best for inflammation. Stevia, better. You like brands like Sweet Leaf are great, which good, clean, organic stevia. A lot of stevia is like if you go into your Starbucks and see stevia in the raw, go look at the ingredients. You'll see it's stevia with maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is corn sugar. It's like, well, aren't I doing stevia to avoid the sugar? It's like, yes, but they'll still put maltodextrin in it. So just be careful with that. And then monk fruit's decent as well. Just try to do it fewer and far between. Like if you're going to mix it in with like some coconut yogurt or something to make it a little sweeter, just try to make it few and far between because I want food coming in without having your brain have this sweet taste overload. And again, no gluten-free junk food. It's really common for patients to be like, oh, well, this is gluten-free and it's oats and it's rice and it's corn and it's potato flour and oat flour. And it's like, well, it's still a lot of acellular processed carbohydrate. Acellular means it's just carbs that are broken down into a powder or into a flour, which process. A lot of times they can spike your blood sugar. They can still be more inflammatory. So again, things like a steak are gluten-free, but they don't have to be advertised as gluten-free. Like an apple doesn't have to be advertised. Is it gluten-free? Yes. And so we like to focus on grain-free, not gluten-free, and then focus on products that don't have to be marketed as gluten-free. Like there are some like really good brands out there, like Jack's Paleo cookies are great because they have like literally AIP approved for cookies. And again, they are a little carby, but they're still super healthy. So people who are more sensitive, those are some good options for you. And then recommended products, different products on my website, snacks, water filters, air filters, dehumidifiers, the whole 9 yards will all be here as well. Click on that and that will open up, I think, on the Justin Health page right here. So pretty cool stuff. And recommended products, and then my meal map. And said there are literally thousands of potential meal options or combinations if you see the meal map, and menu suggestions on the next page. If you're becoming bored with the food, you need to start mixing things up. So very simple, just pick a protein, pick a carb, pick a fat, pick a seasoning. So it could be I get beef, it could be I do a steak, right? I do a steak on the grill, right? I put some sea salt on it. Maybe I put a little bit of sea salt. Redmond's real salt's great. Do your steak. Maybe you saute some broccoli, or you saute a vegetable. Maybe you cook it in some coconut oil, or let's say you're paleo, you do some butter, and you pick your seasonings. Again, if you're autoimmune, you're avoiding the foods in red, right? Red are either nuts, seeds, nightshades, or eggs. And then the FODMAPs are going to be the Fs or the higher FODMAP foods, but again, see the comprehensive list over here as well. And then pick a protein, combine it. So pretty simple here. Pick your protein, fat, carbs. Cook, saute, grill, or bake your protein. Avoid eating raw foods if you're having active gut issues. If you're doing okay, you can do a raw salad. You can do some of those things. Add herbs or seasonings for variety. Make your dish a little bit more tasty that way. Combine your protein with carbs. If your protein's lean, add additional fats. Serve yourself a reasonable amount of food containing protein, fat, and carbs. If you're still hungry 5 to 10 minutes after your meal, continue with a second serving till comfortably full. The sensation in the part of the hypothalamus that controls appetite, there's a 5 or 10 minute delay. So eat a reasonable amount, wait, see where you're at. Again, ideally you want to eat enough so you're full for 4 to 5 hours. Some people have significant gut issues and they can't put that amount of food in. Then you may have to go 2 to 3. So again, these are going to be things I'll deal with you at follow-up consults where we have to individualize things. This is like a general framework. It's like, you buy the home, you buy like the spec home, right? But then maybe you don't want spec home, but maybe you look at the spec home and we customize it, right? So this is the spec home, but then we can customize it. So don't worry, that's what follow-up consults are for. So in case you're watching this and saying, well, that doesn't quite pertain to me, just do your best, go through it, and then we'll customize it next time we chat. And then the meal should be 4 to 5 hours, keep you full, or a little bit less if your tummy's a little bit dysfunctional. And we may need to be adding in, like you'll see on my protocol sheet. Usually we start with enzymes and acids are foundational. In my top 5 patient complaints, most patients, they have gut dysfunction. So we want to make sure we absorb. Usually next week is going to be electrolytes because people are stressed and their adrenals are dysfunctional. They're not absorbing or holding on to their electrolytes. And then 4th usually is motility. People usually have a motility problem and they're not moving the stool out of their body. And so this is a pretty good framework. And then for additional recipe options, you can click here. And again, read the top. Please be aware this list below is some general paleo template ideas. So these are not autoimmune or low FODMAP. Everyone always tells me this. I know it's right at the top. Okay, but autoimmune and low FODMAP recipes will be linked at the bottom, and all recipes can be modified. So you can say, okay, maybe you can't do eggs, but you can just do bacon in the morning and sausage, right? And maybe a handful of berries. Or you do a protein shake with beef or collagen and some unsweetened coconut milk. That's autoimmune and maybe low FODMAP, especially if your coconut milk avoids the guar gum. Like Native Forest has a no guar gum coconut milk. Those are good options if you're trying to be low FODMAP. And then chicken, right? It could be chicken. It could be some steamed vegetables. It could be a handful of berries. All easy modifications. Now, I'm a simple guy. Like in the morning, I'll do like bacon or sausage, and that'll be it. And I'll do like my coffee with collagen and some butter and MCT. Or if I'm trying to be AIP, I'll pull out the butter, right? My lunch will be like a rotisserie chicken, maybe a chicken thigh, and I'll get some vegetables. I'll saute them up. Keep it simple. And then nighttime could be like a steak. It could be some veggies, maybe a quarter sweet potato, right? Maybe a handful of berries. So I'm pretty simple. I don't go crazy. But if you want to make things more different, you can go look at my autoimmune template recipes. You can look at my low FODMAP AIT combo. Or if you are doing the Instapot, you can look at Instapot 2. So these will be up here. So this is autoimmune. The cookbook here is great. You can actually buy their cookbook too, which is I think is right here. This is excellent. So I have this cookbook. It's awesome. So if you want to buy that, great. Ebook or the hard book is great. This is AIP Instapot. So this gives you a whole bunch of Instapot recipes, how to do bone broth, veggies, and then you got your paleo AIP and low FODMAP. And so you can see here, you got your meat recipes, you got your poultry, your seafood, your veggies, your condiments, desserts. So it gives you some pretty cool kind of ways to modify things. You can do paleo low sugar desserts. And again, I'm changing these over the years. So if you're watching this years from now, it may look a little different, but it gives you a pretty good idea. So different paleo recipe options, dessert options. And again, if you have autoimmune issues and you're inflamed, you want to be cleaner, right? You don't want to be doing a whole bunch of processed flours and grains. I like the Jack's paleo cookies are pretty decent. I'll do like a Cocajune or a coconut cult, low sugar or vanilla yogurt. I'll do some fresh berries on it and some cinnamon. That's a really easy one. If you can do nut butters, I'll do a Barney's almond butter unsweetened with a Granny Smith apple, which is half the carbs as a regular apple, and some cinnamon. Those are nice, easy, simple recipes that you could do. Like, take a minute or two. So this gives you some recipe options there. And then there's some other principles I have here, like eating out, mini meal options, restaurants. Again, I tell patients over here, like from a timing standpoint, what about snacks? What about snacks? Ideally, you eat a meal that's big enough that gets you to the next meal. You eat a meal that's big enough, it gets you to the next meal. The only time like a snack maybe comes in, I use the word mini meal, like you could see in that last handout. Let's say you're eating lunch at 1 and you and your spouse are going to go out to dinner at 7. Well, that's 6-7 hours. That may be too long. Maybe you have a smaller meal in there, right? That's a good option, a smaller meal. Or you, like for your kids, like really simple. You can do like some cut up carrots. You can do like some of the more organic, clean, cold cuts that are like more grass-fed, like Welch's or Organic Valley or Applegate. They have some decent brands that are clean. You can roll up, 4 ounces of protein, maybe some carrots that are cut up, a couple of avocado slices, handful of berries. Like you can do pretty easy stuff. Don't make it complicated, right? If you want to make it complicated, that's what these recipes are for. You can always keep it simple and just literally go back to the basics of my meal map and my little steps of creating a healthy meal. I made that years ago and it still works today. Hope that helps, guys. Hope it makes a lot of sense and it resonates with y'all. And again, this is going to be my protocol sheet that's going to be attached to that quick start guide again. So please see that. And I want to make sure we close the door with everything perfectly here and make sure there's no other issues. Okay. And again, there'll be the quick start guide right here. You want to see that. And then outside of that, you make sure you watch this new patient video. This shows you how to pay your invoices, how to change your appointments, just all the logistics of, being involved and connected to a new office. And then again, this will be the link to this video here. And then these are the handouts. And you'll have some handouts within it. You'll have the food reintroduction handout within it as well. And you'll have like the Instapot links. And then make sure you download your protocol sheet, which will look something like this that I will be filling out and modifying during your appointment. I hope you enjoy everything. I hope it makes sense. And again, just remember, like if you're having an issue and you're struggling, don't worry. We'll clean it up at the next consult, right? The new patient consult is a starting point. It's really for me to investigate, put my detective hat on, figure out next steps, and then we'll get really clear on what our vision looks like together, especially as we get labs in. So if you have any issues, just let me know. Again, I always tell patients out of the gate, you got to have a solution-based mindset. If you have an issue or a problem, we cuddle up, we call a new play. We look at, what defense they're giving us, and we call a new play. We want to put everyone in a position to succeed. So just have a solution-based mindset, come back to the huddle with me, and we'll call a new play, and we'll figure out what the next steps look like. But this is going to be, a minimum, I tell patients, a 6-month commitment. So make sure you're committed, because health issues didn't come here overnight. And so it takes some time to reverse it and unwind it. So 6 months, and we'll be able to, I tell patients, 5 to 10% improvement with compounding interest each and every month. That's our goal. So I hope that makes sense. Any questions, feel free and bring it to me at that new patient consult. All right, take care. Bye now.